You're listening to Change Your POV podcast, episode 20.
Oh man, start early. I wish I had started like 4 or 5 years. There's work I could have been doing 4 or 5 years prior to getting out, and I would have so much content and value and stuff to give my audience and put out on social media. And I mean, the business would have exploded like 2 or 3 times faster.
Welcome to Change Your POV podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
All right, ladies and gents, today's episode I'm really excited about. I have on my first Canadian that I've had the opportunity of interviewing. His name is Wes Kennedy. And without spoiling the introduction that we do later, I will just tell you that Wes is up to some really, really cool stuff. So let me introduce what Wes is up to before we get into this outstanding interview. So Wes, he created this Facebook page called Awake and Driven. It's Wes Kennedy's 6-phase snooze button solution. And you're like, what is that all about? Well, check it out. Wes is offering a one-time training where he will show you how he went from being a snooze button addict to waking up refreshed, fired up, and excited to pursue his goals. If you want to learn how you can consistently and effortlessly wake up within 20 seconds of your alarm going off so that you can reclaim those first precious hours of every day that will set you up for success throughout the rest of your day, then here's how you do it. You go on over to that Facebook page that I already mentioned, Awake and Driven, Wes Kennedy's 6-phase snooze button solution. I will tell you that when I was in the military, I didn't have such a problem with waking up on time. I think primarily is because it was far more regimented. We pretty much went to bed at the same time. Well, I mean, except for the weekends and stuff. But it was very regimented. Got up same time every day, same routine every morning. Did PT every morning. Went to formation every day. So it was very regimented. Once I got out, and especially those entrepreneurs out there that work for yourselves, sometimes it can be difficult to kind of get up early when you know that you don't really have to, so it's easy to hit that snooze button like 6, 7, 10, 15 times. But you know what? Getting up extra early, when I mean extra early, it could even be 30 minutes early, or at least just on time. So if you set your alarm for 6 and you actually get up for 6, there's a lot you can do in the amount of time that you would normally be just hitting your snooze button. At the end of the day, how well are you really sleeping when you keep whacking that snooze button anyway? So go on over, check that out. If you've got any questions, you can also email him at wes@elitetrainingprograms.com. Again, that's wes@elitetrainingprograms.com. And head on over and check out that Facebook page. I'm already there, and I'm looking forward to this program because I struggle with this, and I'm interested in kind of cleaning that up for myself and getting some more work done in the morning. A little side note here, since Wes has put this together and has implemented it in his life, he estimated that he's saved an average of 14 hours per week. Now he's twice as effective, his business has grown significantly, and his relationships are easier and have a hell of a lot more fun. And he's made massive progress in the gym. And you're going to learn a little bit more about what Wes does as we get into this interview. And now a word from our sponsor. Speaking of going to the gym, what do you do or what do you listen to when you're at the gym? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to books? And what else is there to listen to? I don't know about you. I like listening to music, but sometimes if I'm just kicking it on the treadmill or stationary bike, I like to dig into some and catch up on some books that I'm reading, / listening to. And if this sounds like you, if you're the kind of person that likes to consume books while you're at the gym or on a walk or on your way to or from work, like me, then you will absolutely love what I've got in store for you. So today's podcast is brought to you by none other than Audible.com. And here's what you can do. you can head on over to changeyourpov.com/free book. Again, that's changeyourpov.com/free book. And there you can just register for your free book. You'll get a free download, and you'll get 30 free days. And you can download your favorite book and start listening to it right now. There's a couple that I highly recommend. I love Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk, and I don't know if you're familiar with Gary, but he's also got like a podcast that I listen to as well. But his book is really cool. One thing I like about the book Crush It is a lot of audiobooks are narrated by somebody other than the author, but Gary actually narrates this book himself, and it's kind of cool because he'll go off script on occasion here and there throughout the book and tell you little tidbits of stuff that you don't actually get when you're reading the hard copy. So that's just something little unique that you get when you listen to the audio version of it. So head on over to changeyourpov.com/free book. Grab your free book now and a 30-day free trial. All right. Welcome to another episode of Change Your POV podcast. This is your host, Eddie Lazary. Today, I have a special guest. Wes Kennedy is a former Canadian Special Forces operator, fitness coach, and entrepreneur. Wes is the founder of Elite Training Programs, an online fitness company focused on remotely training athletes and other high achievers around the world by providing them with 100% individualized program design and nutrition coaching. Wes is currently finishing his book, The Ultimate Special Operations Guide, set to release late in 2016. He is also developing his business mastermind group that shows FitBiz owners how to create a fun-to-own seven-figure business that provides serious value and make a meaningful difference in people's lives. Welcome to the show, Wes. How you doing?
Hey, Eddie. Great being here. Thanks for having me on the show.
And my pleasure. You're my first Canadian.
Ah, perfect. Well, hopefully not the last.
I hope not. So introduce yourself a little bit more. Go into a little bit more of a detail than the bio I just read. Tell us about you and kind of what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So I, as you mentioned, I was in the Canadian Special Forces. I spent 8 years in the Canadian military, 3 as a combat engineer and 4 as a Special Forces operator with the Canadian Special Operations Regiment. Spent a couple tours in Afghanistan, did a lot of cool courses, had a lot of fun with that job. And like many people, reached a point in the military where I either had to decide that I was going to go the long game and do 20, 25 years and make a career out of it, or if I was going to get out and pursue another venture. And of course, being here, you guys all know which choice I made. And it was funny because I always kind of wanted to get into business for myself, even before I really knew what that meant. I'm not really sure what appealed to me about it, whether it was, being in charge or being able to have, bring my own ideas into fruition. And for a while, I knew that if I was going to get into business, at least the first business needed to be something that I was really passionate about. So I couldn't just get into business for the money, and I never would do that. And I wasn't really sure what it was going to be. A lot of people recommended, hey, you're really good at fitness, you enjoy it, you talk about it all the time, you read about it, you're very knowledgeable about it. And for a couple of years, I thought, that's kind of going to take away from my passion, not really something I'm interested in. And about 8 months before getting out, so coming up on 3 years ago, I couldn't tell you what it was, but something just kind of hit me. And I thought, hey, it would be really rewarding to work with people on their fitness and help them achieve those goals and coach people. And so I just went at it. The 8 months in the military before I released, I spent that building a website, getting clear on some basic business acumen, taking some coaching courses, setting my life up to move out here to Victoria, BC. And then I got out November 2013, drove out to Victoria, started the business and been growing it ever since. And on that journey, I've branched out into some business consulting, business coaching, some life coaching, and got a whole bunch of other stuff on the back burner and ideas and opportunities that I'd love to take advantage of, and really just trying to enjoy this journey and bring value to my clients and our followers and have fun while we're doing it. That's
cool. So you mentioned that you started developing yourself about 8 months prior to separation. Now, was that just something you chose to do? Did somebody kind of advise you to do something like that? How did you decide to start doing that early on?
Well, yeah, that early on. I wish I started earlier.
Right.
8 months was good. I'm definitely glad I did it. I wanted to make the transition smooth. Yeah, so 8 months, I mean, I just kind of worked away. When I wasn't at work or doing my job in the military, I was at home studying or learning how to build a website or learning how to find somebody to build a website and learning what needed to be on that website, or finding out how to get a business license, or finding out what's bookkeeping and what's an accountant, and how does networking fall into this, and how do I do sales? How do I do marketing?
Mm.
It's really overwhelming when I think back, and I'm surprised I even got started in the first place when I started thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good on you, man, because I didn't consider doing any type of preparation prior to my separation, and neither did a lot of people that I served with. And the more people that I talked to in an interview, I'm noticing a trend that there's very little preparation that goes into separation. And my guess is it's probably not specific to United States military service. My guess is there's military across all the globe that probably struggle with transition. Have you found that amongst your comrades there in Canada?
Oh, definitely. And there's a lot of guys that get out and they have aspirations to either own a policing or into business or some other venture. And, they realize it's not for them and return to the military, which is great as well. The military is a great career. I think what really saved me is the fact that I had signed a 5-year contract initially, then a 3-year, and I was coming up on my 8 years, and it was either, about 8 months, 6 months before, I was either going to have to re-sign and
Mm.
sign for a 20 or a 25-year contract, or release. And if I sign for a 20 or 25-year, breaking the contract is a lot more of a pain in the butt, and you lose out on some benefits. So I was really given a very black and white choice, and I think that really helped me pull the trigger on getting what I needed done to start my business smoothly as I transitioned out of the military.
Yeah, I was faced with the same thing. I was right at 10 years when I got out, and in the United States Army, any enlistment that would put you over that 10-year mark, it's no longer an enlistment for years. It's an enlistment for what's called per needs of the Army, basically saying that you're in it for the long haul, and the only way you're getting out is basically to submit like a letter of intent, and it's got to be approved and all of that. So I was looking at either getting out at my 10-year mark, and of course that was just 30 short days after my redeployment from Iraq, or sign the dotted line and basically make a career out of it, not knowing what was going to happen down the road. So difficult decision to make, and sometimes those decisions are made in haste. And when you're in the military, hasty decisions are kind of the norm. But when you're separating out of the military, it should not be one of them, in my recommendation.
No, definitely not. It's good. I mean, there's a lot of services that are available to transitioning members. I think there's a lot that could still be done to improve upon those and communicate the reality of how things are when they're going to get out. I can't imagine having gotten out 2 years ago and tried to look for employment. There's
Mm.
not a chance I was going to find any job other than maybe in the security field, which would have me in some other location I didn't want to live, which was a large reason I got out of the military in the first place.
Hmm.
Nobody was going to pay me what I was making back in the military. I was going to start from the bottom up, and yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine doing that. It's such a culture shift and life changing experience.
So, I mean, you're a very interesting guy, Wes. I mean, you go from, combat engineer to special operations to, this entrepreneurial spirit that you've got going on right now. So very successful. How do you define success?
That's a really good question. Well, I think for me, there's a few things. One, I need to be certain that I'm constantly providing value to my audience. I have zero interest in pursuing anything only for the money. Money brings a lot of comforts and opportunities with it. I call money's two things to me. Money is a choice multiplier, and money is an exchange of values. So money is one criteria I would use to determine success. Another one would be value. How much value am I bringing to people? If I'm not bringing significantly more value than what I'm asking for in return, I don't think I'm being successful. If I'm not connecting with others, if all my time is spent in front of the computer and working and focusing on the next big thing, that's not success in and of itself. I need connection as well. I need to connect with
Hmm.
others. I need to connect with my clients. I need to connect with my audience. And lastly, for me, would be play. I need to have fun. I need to go train. I need to go do gymnastics, learn how to dance, go hiking in the woods, go camping, try a new sport out. I really like movement and play and that physical aspect of life. And so, yeah, I think those 5 things would be largely how I determine success.
Nice. And I know before we got on the call, you had mentioned your interest in obstacle racing, and a lot of your clients are into obstacle racing. So what do you got up there in Canada in the way of obstacle racing?
We've got a couple main events, and I think they're in the U.S. as well. We have Spartan races,
That's right,
and
Spartan.
yeah, Spartan races. We've got Tough Mudder. You guys have that?
Yep, we
Yeah,
do.
Tough Mudder. I think that one's in the UK and Australia as well. I think they're getting quite big. And then in the US, I train a couple guys in the US who are also entrepreneurs and training for tough or not Tough Mudders, but obstacle races in their spare time. Can't think of the name of theirs right off the top of my head, but there's a couple. There's an Endeavor Team Challenge is another one in the States. Yeah, so there's quite a few of them. But
That's cool. I bring that up because my daughter and I recently found the life of the Spartan. We ran our first race in Killington, Vermont this year, and then we chose to do another race at the Fenway ballpark, the Fenway Sprint. And it was just, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an obstacle course and it's, you're working out, right, and all this. But it turned out to be something different that we didn't expect. And it was a sense of completing something that you originally didn't think that you could do, right? And I think that's the whole concept of obstacle racing. So people that haven't done an obstacle race, and it's more than just getting up off the couch and doing something active. It's about testing yourself, testing your will, working as a team. Because whether you go and race with a team or if you go individually, by the time you get through a race, you're helping out strangers. Strangers are helping you out get over walls. It's just an awesome experience. So I mean, and I can attribute obstacle racing to a lot of how entrepreneurs or people that own their own business, there's a lot of correlation there. Have you been able to sense any type of correlation between, say, obstacle racing and owning your own business?
that's a good question. I don't think I've specifically thought about that, but I'm sure there is. I mean, the camaraderie and leveraging each other's strengths, preparing and training and researching whatever you need to accomplish. Yeah, I think there's a lot of correlations for sure, and I think it's why it's a sport. Obstacle racing is a sport that's set to overtake CrossFit. CrossFit's
Hmm.
really popular. It's brought a lot of fun back into fitness, and the nice thing about obstacle racing is it's even more available to everyone. I mean, you don't really need a lot. You just go outside, you pick up rocks and logs and run in the mud and climb up and down hills and jump in cold water, and it's very accessible for a lot of people. GoRuck Selection, by the way, is the other one that I train a
Mm,
couple clients for as well. So it's great. A lot of entrepreneurs like that. It provides them with that outlet when they step away from their computer and go train for something that's, it brings that competition, that physical competition that they're not getting in the boardroom or at the computer.
right. Yep, totally agree. Someone once told me that there's no such thing as succeeding and failing. There's only succeeding and learning. And but you and I both know that to be successful in life comes with failure as well. So, given that and all the success that you've had in life, what's been your greatest failure along the way?
Well, I kind of have a bit of the same outlook on that, and I mentioned this. This was my quote on Ray Tulani's podcast, The Super Strength Show, and it was, "There's no failure, only feedback."
Mm,
Right. So failure is an opportunity. If you consider
hmm.
failure a bad thing, you're not going to get a lot done in life. You're going to be
Absolutely.
very, 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 very limited in what you're ever going to accomplish. If you can see failure as another learning tool, then sky's the limit.
Absolutely.
Can you repeat the question, by the way?
Actually, you answered it. You nailed it.
Did I? Okay,
Oh,
great.
you did. You nailed it better than I think
I
I
think I
could
think
have.
I had a second part to that, but I lost my train of thought there, which
That's all right. It'll come back.
okay.
So, let me ask you this. So, when you're pursuing a goal or a dream or a project, and it starts to fail or not go, according to plan or the way you originally thought, how do you, as an entrepreneur, know when it's time to pull the trigger or when to keep driving on. Because when you're in the military and things get hard, oftentimes you don't get a choice. You're just told to go, right? You don't get a tap out. But when you're owning your own business and it's all riding on you, right? You're writing the checks. The customers are looking for you. You got to make the right decisions. So when you get to that point where you don't know if you should keep going because it's a time sink, a money sink, and you're not sure if it's going to be successful, or do you just push through it, get over that hump, get over that hurdle, and make it, just to see if it will be successful? How do you know which way to go with that?
Yeah, good question. I think there's a little heuristic I use to make decisions, or rather what to do with different tasks. And I can't remember it completely off the top of my head. It's basically delete it. So if it's not worth it, if I think about it and it's just not going to bring that return on investment, whether it's return on value I can bring to my customers, a return on money, a return on my time, return on my coach's time, then we delete it. We get rid of it completely. If it's something that needs to be done and I just really don't want to do it, or it's something that I shouldn't be doing because there's other more important stuff that only I can do over here, then I would delegate it. I would get somebody else to do it. I'd explain it really clearly and lay it out for them. And there's a third D to this. I can't remember what it is, but essentially it's, if I don't want to do it, but I need to be doing it, then I just get really clear on all the reasons why it's important and what it's going to create for me, and get clear on how long I need to be doing it for, and just get really clear on that time and measurability of that project.
So what advice, if you had the ear of, service members today that are approaching their separation, what advice would you give those that are interested in getting out of the Army and starting their own business or small venture?
Oh man, start early. Start early. I wish I had started like 4 or 5 years. There's work I could have been doing 4 or 5 years prior to getting out, and I would have so much content and value and stuff to give my audience and put out on social media. And I mean, the business would have exploded like 2 or 3 times faster. Um, think about what you want to do. If it is that you want to start a business, get really clear on what you want to do. What do you want to do when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel? How does that smell? What does it look like? What's your ideal life look like?
Mm.
Figure
And
out.
if you could, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, figure out what you enjoy, figure out what you're going to have fun at, and then get really clear on what you're going to offer. And once you do that, just start. One of my friends asked me a really good question the other day. He's like, "Hey, I'm really impressed at how quickly you grew that business." I said, "Thanks, man. I really appreciate that." And he said, "How did you always know the right answer?" And I said, "Well, funny enough is I never did know the right answer. What I did know is I always knew the next question to ask. And if you
Right.
always know the next question to ask, or just keep asking the questions and finding the answers, whether that's asking other people, researching online, whatever, just keep asking the right questions and you'll get there."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been asked that before by someone in the military, and I attribute it to like a land navigation course. You've got a start point, and then you have an objective, and you know where you are, and you know where you've got to be, but you don't necessarily know the path in which you're going to take. You don't know what obstacles you're gonna face. You may, run into a fence. You got to figure out how to get over or under. You might run into a lake. You have to figure out how to navigate around. And owning your own business and going down that path, it's very similar. You don't necessarily have to know how to tackle every obstacle along the way, but as long as you know what your objective is, what the end point is, what your goal is, then you can adapt and overcome and find a way to get over, around, under, through, whatever you need to, as long as you're clear about the why.
You got it.
Awesome. So you mentioned starting earlier and doing so many things ahead of time. And a lot of people don't realize when you're in, there's so many things. And I totally agree with you. I didn't realize there were so many things that I could have been doing while I was in. I thought the only thing I could have done to prepare myself to get out was go to college. And I was a
Right.
combat arms MOS. So,
Yep.
I mean, I was on deployments. I was out doing field training exercises. I actually did enroll in college and try to take some classes, but my schedule in the Army just wouldn't allow it. So I thought, oh, I guess there's nothing I can do. And I just stopped pursuing anything to prepare me to get out. It wasn't until I got out and actually started my own business and got some education, got some experience. I look back at my life and I'm like, damn, there are so many things I could have done to prepare ahead of time. So if you were to pick just one thing while you were in to prepare for where you're at today, what would that thing be?
Can I pick two?
Okay, you can pick
Okay.
two.
One of them would just be creating content. One of them would have been writing. If I had known 3 or 4 years before that I wanted to start an online fitness coaching business, I would have just started writing content. Every week I would have written 1,000 words. That's it. Just 1,000 words each week. And if somebody's listening to this and they haven't written before and think, oh man, 1,000 words, 1,000 words comes onto that paper a lot quicker than you would think if you're knowledgeable about a subject and you have something to say. And all the stuff around, like my grammar and punctuation and syntax, you can get somebody else to do that. Like, you don't need to go to school and get an English degree to write 1,000 words on your opinion on a topic that you've spent a lot of time educating yourself on. Just write it, and then somebody else can like fine tune it so it sounds really good. And I mean, there's a lot of coaches out there that won't even spend their time doing that. They just write as if they're talking, and people read that stuff. It's real. It's authentic.
And that's the thing today I've noticed, that people really resonate with authenticity.
Yep.
They don't want something that's scripted and canned. And
Yep.
I mean, the podcasts out there that are the most successful are very, very open, very real, very candid.
Yep.
And then
No,
I think that,
it's why I told you I wasn't going to prepare for this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot more fun if you just jump on a call and start talking and just express exactly what you're thinking.
And I'm wondering if that isn't because of people have been conditioned over the years due to like reality TV shows.
Yep.
I mean, there's been so many over the years that's just. I mean, when it first came out, it was like, wow, I can't believe they're televising something that's unscripted. But people just latched onto it and just becomes part of the normal, the normal saturation of entertainment these days, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, don't even get me started on reality TV and what that teaches people in terms of the norms around communicating with each other and oh man. Yeah, don't get me started on that. The second one though that I would have started working on is how to sell. And you can call it sales, you can call it, I like to call it enrolling other people into something. Whatever you want to call it, sales, enrollment, whatever. It applies to every area of your life. I really like saying that sales fixes all. Sales cures all. If your business is having some issues, sales cures everything. On the other side of sales, of course, you need to bring the value and have good customer service and keep track of your numbers and have good marketing, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. If you can sell your service, if you can sell yourself, if you can sell your ideas, if you can sell your partnership with other people, the sky's the limit. If you can sell yourself, you can do anything.
And so what tools do you use to make a better salesman of yourself?
I think the biggest one would be the work I do on myself, the transformation that takes place within me, getting really clear as to what my purpose is in life, who I am, what I believe in, the why behind what I'm doing. And if you can show up as, let's call it a salesman, and I'm talking whether you're selling to a prospective client, whether you're trying to partner with somebody in a business, whether you're approaching a guy like Eddie Lazzari on a podcast and saying, hey, I want to be on your podcast, and this is why, and this is how it's going to benefit you and your audience. When you're doing all of that, if you can just show up in your being, if you can just show up in your full power of who you are without any of your crappy stories about what other people think about you, or watching out what you say here, or not saying this because you don't want people to think that, or whatever, all that other stuff that we have and we learned growing up. If you can just show up, you create that trust and that space and that vulnerability and that intimacy for your client and everybody else around you, and people are drawn to that. People want more of that. People are really freaking tired of fake and guarded and insincere. People want vulnerability and realness and authenticity. If you can do that, you are 10 steps ahead of everybody else around you.
Yep. And I've heard several times from many, many different sources that In order to increase sales, the trick is to get people to know, like, and trust you, right? And you can't get somebody to know, like, and trust you if there isn't that element of vulnerability, of authenticity, right?
Totally. I mean, you can get them to know you, but they're probably not going to like you or trust you.
Right, right. So what other tools, say, let's call them online tools or other tools, do you use every day or every week or month or whatever that just helps you move that needle forward? I'm always talking about moving the needle and making sure that, somebody once told me that being busy is good, but getting things done is better. And to me, that translates to moving the needle. And owning your own business, you can go down these rat holes of just being busy, but at the end of the day, you're just not getting anything done. You're not moving the needle. So, what tools do you use to help move your needle?
Are we talking tools as in software or
It
Excel
could
sheets, that kind of tool? Like,
anything. I mean, one guy told me that he journals, he writes in his journal every day, and he's got a gratitude rock that he basically holds in his hand before he goes to bed every night, and he talks to himself and says 12 things that he's grateful for that day, and that helps him move the needle. I mean, other people say that they use different types of productive tools online. I mean, it could be anything. What do you use? What's your fallback or your go-to when it comes to, if I could do this, then I know I'm moving the needle in my business.
right. How many do I get here? Because I have a list of that we could make just a podcast just about this.
Go for it, man. We got some time.
Okay. Well, in terms of organization, there's a lot of tools, and I always encourage people to use what they find works for them over time. But things like Dropbox, and this goes back to things. Get familiar with this before you get out. Man, when I was getting out, I had to learn that Internet Explorer was the worst browser out there, and turns out I was still using it, and everybody else around me knew that only old grandmas were still using that internet browser, right? Like, I
Yep.
didn't understand technology very well at all when I got out. So again, this is all stuff you can learn prior to getting out, but have get really clear on how to use a calendar app in your day to day. I have every single thing I do in a day. It's either scheduled in if it's a task that needs doing, or if it's just a list that I need to access elsewhere. I use Evernote, and I create all sorts of different lists from, hey, maybe I want a dog in 2 years. Okay, let's do some research on that. Here's a list of all different kind of dogs I could get. Or, hey, let's create a list on what I need when I travel, so that instead of every time I need to go somewhere, I'm not running around the house thinking about it. I just look at the list and I just go through it, check, 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 and then it's done. Dropbox is another great one. You can have your entire computer on Dropbox, and you can sync it with your phone, your iPad. Then you can access it anywhere in the world via the browser application. Really handy. Having a tickler folder. Having a tickler folder is basically uh, it's 43 folders, one for each month, and 31 for each day of the month. And if you have anything physical that you're going to need to access on a given day, you just put it in that folder. So say it's December and you need it on December 15th, then you're going to put it in the folder marked 15. And if it's not in December, then you're just going to put it in one of the other months. And then as you come to that month, then you'll divide it up into the days at that point. So a tickler folder is another a great tool. And the one I like the most is I have a giant whiteboard. Don't buy a whiteboard from like Staples, buy a Melmac board. So you can get these at Home Depot. They're about $40. It's probably about 5 feet wide, 5 or 6 feet wide by about 3 or 4 feet tall. And I map out all sorts of stuff on there. Right now, it's filled up with exactly what I want to have in my life. On the far left, it has all of the things, all of the big projects in my different businesses that I want to tackle, and helps me get clear on that. It has a little spot on it for what I want my experience to be. A lot of guys in the military are really good at the doing and the tasks, and we're not really good at getting clear on what that experience should feel like. How does it feel? We're not, how it is, right? We're not very good with
Mm-hmm.
our feelings in the military.
Yep. Yep.
Let's just put it out there on the table. But I think it's really important to not just get clear on what you want to do, but what's that experience feel like? Like, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to show up? How do you want to live your day to day? And I write things down like rewards. I have different little rewards that I'll give myself when I hit different benchmarks. I have practices written on that board. So if I realize there's something that I'm doing or something in the way that I'm being that's not serving me in creating what I've said or stated that I want to create, then I create some practices around that to move forward and create that transformation in my life. So I think a whiteboard is a great tool. You can use it for all the stuff I just mentioned. You can use it to map out your business model or your business canvas or business plan or whatever, or whatever else you really want that you want to see every day, in the morning or when you go to bed or whatever, so that you're constantly present to what you're trying to create.
What was the name of that board again?
So it's a whiteboard, but if you search Melmac, MELMAC, it's the same whiteboard that you can find it at Home Depot, minus all the fancy, expensive like borders to it and everything. It's just the plain,
Yep.
thin piece of whiteboard. That's like 40
Cool.
or $50, which would cost you about $600 if you get it
Oh,
all.
absolutely
Yeah.
would, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll have all the. That's why I asked, because I'm going to have all the links to everything that you just mentioned in the show notes.
Beauty.
So if you're curious about any of those, you can go and check it out. There's another tool you mentioned, whiteboards. There's a tool that I learned about actually today. It's an online whiteboard. You can find it at realtimeboard.com. And there's a free version, then there's a premium paid version. I think I think you get 3 whiteboards for free, and if you want more than that, then you could pay for it. But you could it's a whiteboard, and I don't know why you need more than 3. So because as things change or your projects change, you just wipe it off and just put something new on there. But I looked at actually over my lunch break today. I pulled it up on my computer and just went through the tutorial, and I kind of looked around, and it can do everything you can do on a whiteboard at home, but you have it all digitally, and you can also add people. Like if you've got a small team, you can add people to it as contributors, and they can actually go in and contribute to the whiteboard, and you can zoom in, zoom out. I mean, it's basically an infinite size whiteboard that you can use. It's pretty cool. I have not had a chance to really use it yet. I just literally got on and signed up for it and just kind of went through the tutorial and kind of poked around. So I'll have a link for that as well if you're into whiteboards, or if you're looking for a way to. That's the disadvantage of a hard physical whiteboard is if you do a lot of traveling or you go somewhere and you can't pack that thing away. But if you're at home and you've got an office or something and you want to just sketch something out, then a whiteboard on the wall is definitely a way to go. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I always tell people, because I fell prey to this, is if you ever find yourself looking at a whole bunch of different lists, a piece of paper in your desk and your calendar and notes in your computer and Evernote and a whiteboard, what'll happen many times is what's happened to myself is that I would spend so much time in the day just looking at those lists and trying to find that next easy thing that I could do to move forward, rather than just doing what's supposed to be next. What is the big thing that has to happen next? And so I really try and condense that so that, I'm either just looking at my calendar or referencing something in a list. And if it's not in those two things, then I try not to spend a lot of time writing notes down different places, because it's not really effective.
How have you been able to leverage your military experience into your company that you're running today?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to choose a business. Well, I actually have a few friends that have started businesses, and they've all managed to leverage it. Fitness was an easy one. I decided that I wanted to train. For one, I wanted to train special operations candidates or other military members that were trying out for elite units. And having a special operations background is extremely beneficial, because a lot of people, when they go and get fitness coaching, especially when they're athletes or semi-athletes, they're going to look for somebody that's done what they've done. People we're not really trained to always look for somebody that really knows what they're doing. I mean, I just happen to also know what I'm doing, which is fortunate. But initially people are just going to say, okay, hey, I want to accomplish XYZ. Who's accomplished that before and is helping other people do that? And so it's been extremely beneficial in that sense. As I move into, the business realm and coaching and public speaking, I think it just brings with it an instant layer of of credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's a lot of things that need to happen after that. But it does set me up for success in that I can go out and talk to people and, you know, knowing that that's what I did in my previous line of work, regardless of what their opinion is on the military or foreign policy, they know, hey, this guy is somebody that gets it done, is hardworking, is probably somebody that honors their commitments. And so it really sets me up for success in that regard. And
Uh,
networking with guys like yourself or the guys over on softrep.com or the loadoutroom.com and working with them, the networking that's available to people as they move out of the military is pretty awesome as well.
so what's your greatest networking advice in terms of, how to build one, how to start one, how to leverage it? Like, what do you use? What tools do you have? Anything that you can talk on briefly about networks?
Yeah, for networking, I would say get really clear on what your intentions are. If you go to networking events with the sole intention of closing, quote, quote, closing a sale, you're not going to be successful. Not only are you not going to be successful, you're not going to have a lot of fun at it, and people are quickly going to tune you out.
Mm-hmm.
If you get clear on what you want, that's fine if that's the end goal in some regards, but just go and have fun. Be open to what the possibility of connecting with other people and just see where it goes. Find out about them. Ask about other people. I recently listened to a really good webinar by one of my mentors, Jesse Elder, and what he recommends when somebody asks you, "Hey, what do you do?" at a networking event is rather than get into all the stuff that you do and have this perfectly crafted sales pitch or elevator pitch and try and sell them with words, basically, just say, hey, I do quite a few different things. Tell me about yourself. What's really interesting in your life right now? And just get
Mm,
really crystal clear on what's interesting to them, what is inspiring to them, and how you can serve them. And if there is an opportunity for you to be of service to them in that conversation, it's going to become extremely obvious. And now they're going to have your trust. They're going to like you. And and then if it happens, it's great. And if not, that's okay too. You've just made a
right.
friend. You've learned about something new. They've probably taught you something you didn't know, and you're just having a good time. So that would be
Yeah.
my advice on networking. But
So it's
it's a
about
constant learning process.
absolutely. It's like, going into it in the right frame of mind. And so how do you now I'm going to get your take on this because I've heard it both ways. When you go to these networking events, conferences, or whatever, I've heard that you should, make up a batch of business cards that you can then exchange. I've heard people say that's a waste of time. Nobody, as soon as people get home from that conference, the first thing they do is just empty out their pockets of all the business cards, and nobody does anything with them because nowadays everything's digital. What's your take on having a personal or a business card?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you want to do things. I don't think they're overly useful for most businesses, if any. I personally will take everybody's business card that I get and go and find them on LinkedIn and add them
Mm,
and reach out to them and actually try and form a little bit more of a connection with them. I think for me, they're useful when other people have them. Otherwise, you can do the same thing just by pulling out your phone and adding each other to LinkedIn right there at times. It's not always the
right.
most feasible thing to be pulling out your phone and typing away. So business cards are handy at times. And you can always put, I like to use lead pages or lead digits, which is a lead pages service. And with that, I can put a call to action in a text. So I can say text spec ops to this number and receive your how to build a year-long training plan as you prepare for special operations, and then they can text it. They'll get a text back, punch in their email, and now now they're on my email list, and we can connect. But it's not necessary. If you want to keep things easy, I don't think a business card is a make or break. If you're a professional, if you're a lawyer or an accountant, it might be a little strange if you don't have one. But
Mm,
for the most part, I mean, it's just one other tool, and each person needs to try different things, see what works for them, get rid of what doesn't work, and get rid of what does through measuring it and constantly evolving their strategy.
Nice. Very good. Very good advice there. So what I hear you saying, it's rather industry specific. If you're a lawyer and you go to events and that's the standard, then you should have one. If not, it's up to you. But at the end of the day, the idea is to find a way to capture information, whether it be a business card, putting it in your phone. I really like that lead pages text idea, and I might get with you at some point later
Yeah, definitely.
off the show to kind of pick your brain about that because I'm interested there. Um, but you mentioned a few times LinkedIn. I think I really like evergreen content, something that somebody can listen to 10 years from now and it still be relevant. But right now the de facto end all be all networking tool hands down out there is LinkedIn. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of, I think LinkedIn, I like Facebook as well.
Mm-hmm.
I meet a lot of people on there. LinkedIn can be good initially. I find people don't really stay in touch on LinkedIn. If there's
Mm,
not a connection initially, I really I like to message, anybody that adds me. I say, hey, what caught your eye? What inspired the connection?
mm,
If I add them, then I'll reach out and tell them why I'm reaching out and connecting with them. And if there is more of a connection there, if as we talk, we feel that one of us or the other one of us can provide value to the other one, well, hey, let's jump on a phone call, get to know each other a little bit better and see where things go. If not, I don't really find, people will reach out to you over time. Some people take more time and they need to get to know you through your posts and how you show up
mm-hmm.
online. I really like Facebook because people tend to communicate more on there. It's a little bit more fun. You get to know people a little bit better outside of just the business side of things.
Right, right.
And so I think I like Facebook and LinkedIn. And again, this would be another thing that I would encourage guys to do before they get out of the military.
Yeah.
Social media is not, the 14-year-old girls game that military guys make it out to be. It is an extremely valuable tool that regardless of what type of unit you're in, you can start to leverage a lot earlier on before you get out. And I really encourage guys to do that. Start using that. If you're not on social media, you're throwing away some easy free opportunity.
Absolutely. And you're saying to yourself, well, I don't know anybody outside the military. Well, to be honest with you, everybody that you meet when you're in are all going to have to get out at some
Yep.
point. It's like the ultimate college fraternity,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's going to go off. Some people are going to make really big names for themselves. Other people are just going to go and be happy digging ditches, and that's fine. The world needs ditch diggers too.
Yep.
But if I were to do it all over again, I would have captured the name of everybody that I came in contact with, everybody that I served under,
Yep.
everyone that served under me, and I would have just been unjudicial about that. I would have captured all that information because there's so many people that I came in contact with in my 10 years in the Army that I just wish that I could find again and reach out and see what they're doing and be in contact with that I just can't seem to either find them on social media or I can't remember their name or whatever. So stay in contact with the people in and around you where you're at. That's where it is. And then when you get out, you just continue to grow and build your network because you never know. And it's not about what they can do for you. It's about what you can do for them. And whenever you're doing something or provide what you keep saying this, Wes, over and over, and that's providing value to others. Because the more you can provide value to others, and the more can become useful or a tool to others, the more people are going to be willing to reciprocate. I mean, and you shouldn't do things for the sole purpose of reciprocation.
No.
But that's what a network is for. The network is you give, 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 and there'll come a time when you might need a leg up, or you might need a hand, or you might need some advice, and that's when that network really comes into play.
Yeah, and people are getting really good at spotting the BS, and people are very
Mm,
cynical. The online space has created a lot of scams and people that just want quick money and sell really subpar products.
yeah.
If to differentiate yourself, you just need to be consistent. You need to speak to people the way you want to show up. You need to provide the value that you would want provided to yourself and do it freely, give a lot of it, don't hold back. And eventually people are going to see that and they're going to come banging down on your door. They're going to want to
Hmm.
work with you. And then those are the people that you want to work with too. So not only
Right.
are you not having not only are you not having a hard time anymore getting clients or getting customers or growing your audience is full of people that are inspiring to you and that you want to work with as well. You don't have to try hard to sell to anybody. They want to work with you, you want to work with them, and it's a great relationship.
Yeah, because business is so a two-way street, man. Because if you just have a bunch of people buying your product or hiring you for a service and you can't stand them, no amount of money in the world could just. I mean, you have to be able to lay your head down at night and just be happy with the people that you're providing,
Right.
value to at the
Right.
end of the day.
And don't get me wrong, I have made a lot of mistakes over the past 2 years in terms of how I provide value or what value I've chosen, or I've made a lot of mistakes with sales, with enrollment, with marketing, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I just wish I could go erase. I wish I could do
Mhm.
it completely differently, and I still make mistakes. So I just want people to know that like I might be sitting here and just say, "Oh yeah, you just give value and everybody just comes to you." Well, I didn't really feel like that for the first year that I was in business.
Mm.
It as much as I said, "Hey, let's have an abundance mindset," and that took me a while to really cultivate that, and I'm still working on it. It's really
Mhm.
easy to get into a scarcity mindset where you're just worried about the bottom line and the next person's going to screw you over and you're giving and you're not getting back enough. It's a constant process to move past that, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. All right, wrapping up now. I got a few more questions for you. The first two are kind of rapid fire. I'll still put you on the spot here. So, what are you reading these days? What's your favorite book?
I recently read a book called The Last Word on Power. Really, really like it. Highly recommend it. It talks about our winning strategies and how if we want to great book for your audience is if we want to transition or if we want to transform and create something completely new, a lot of times that winning strategy that's worked so well in getting you to exactly where you are now is not going to serve you in moving forward. And so you're going to have
Mm.
to identify that winning strategy and then decide which strategy to use in any given situation to be in service of what you've declared you're going to create. And the
Mm.
other book would be 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. He was one of the co-founders of PayPal. He's gone on to be the founder or partner in many other ventures, and he gives some very, very practical advice. One of the few business books that really, really stick out for me. Not a lot of same old tired advice in a lot of books. This one is hands down a must read for any entrepreneur.
Nice. What's your favorite quote?
No failure, only feedback, and the man in the arena by Teddy Roosevelt.
Mm. Oh, I love that one. That's my favorite quote, as
Yep,
a matter of fact.
yep,
Yep. I mean, it took me probably three times of reading through that and really pondering it to internalize everything that quote means. So
yeah.
I'll put that quote up on the show notes as well. If you've never heard that quote by Teddy Roosevelt, it is definitely
You want me to read it right now?
sure if you got it. Absolutely.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
That is awesome.
That's a
And I know
great
you had
quote.
that memorized.
Yeah, yeah. We'll leave it. Yeah, that's what we'll go with.
That's awesome. And I was actually going to use it as Change Your POV's tagline,
Nice.
but it was too long.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for reading that for the audience. I'll still also include it in the show notes. It's a keeper. Anybody that's in business for themselves or in the military looking to get out, starting something on their own, or just anybody in general, you could take that, internalize it, and it's a very, very excellent quote by our former president, Mr. Teddy Roosevelt. All right. So, as you may or may not know, this is a relatively new podcast. I ask all my guests a closing question. and because I like to gauge kind of similar questions amongst my audience. So the question is this: give us an example of a time when you believed or thought of something one way, but an event or circumstance occurred that forced you to see it from a different perspective. What was it, and what did you learn from the experience?
I'll share a really personal one here. I'm on a year-long program right now called Accomplishment Coaching, and in order to coach others, a lot of time spent learning how to coach others, funny enough, is spent on getting really clear on our own stories and our own patterns and our own beliefs. And from a very young age, I've always had a too much context. I'm too much. I talk too much. I talk too much about myself. I'm too out there. And funny enough, that the last thing I want to happen, which is hurting other people or turning other people away, underneath that too much context, the way I show up, it does exactly that. And so getting really clear that I have this false story of being too much allows me to recognize it and see it when it does show up, and then just choose a different way of being that serves what I'm trying to create. And imagine how detrimental a story or a context of too much is to a business owner that wants to be a thought leader and create a personal brand and serve his clients and customers on podcasts and in his writing and on videos. And so I would say that that's probably one of, this year's biggest aha moments. And for me was quite profound in the way that I show up for my audience.
That's very, very cool. That's very, very, so it's almost like you're fighting internally with these polar opposite kind of diabolically opposing forces. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's one thing.
Turmoil.
That's one thing that and that's what I found across the board with former military is they find it difficult to promote themselves. And when you're starting your own business, you have to be okay with promoting yourself, right? Because if you don't get out there and promote yourself, but it's just, I don't know if it's, at first I thought it was just me, but the more people that I talk to that try to start their own business or their own thing when they get out of the military, they really, really struggle with self-promotion.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's something that we learn in the military about, it's not one person, you're a part of a team, I don't know what it is, but even starting this podcast and the blog that I got going on, in order for me to be successful and get my message out there to people that need it, I have to find a way to be okay with self-promotion. And I'm learning as I go, and I'm learning from experts that are out there in the field. But you're right. It's one of those things where you want to be serving, not self-serving. You want to be honest but not abrasive. I mean, so there's always these constant diabolical opposing forces that I struggle with on a daily basis, and you just found a way to kind of put that into words for me. So thank you very much for sharing that story. If for nothing else, I got something out of it and it resonated with me. So thank you.
Well, I'm really, really happy to hear it was impactful. Thanks for sharing that.
Basically, that wraps it up for us today. Wes, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to touching base with you later down the road to kind of check in, see how you're doing, and would love to have you back on the show again. You can find all the show notes for this episode at changeyourpov.com. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. If you want to reach out to me, you can contact me at eddie@changeyourpov.com. I would love to hear from you. And Wes, if you could please share with the audience where they can find you and where they can get more information about you and what you're up to.
Yeah, you bet. You guys can head over to elitetrainingprograms.com if you'd like to learn more about our online fitness coaching and what we're doing with tactical athletes around the world. If you would like to get my free 3-part video series on how to create a comprehensive training plan as you prepare for special operations, you can head over to elitetrainingprograms.com/SpecOps. We work with lots of military members as well as entrepreneurs. So if you're not in the military or you're not trying to do a special operations event and you're just a hardworking professional or entrepreneur, we work with a lot of those guys as well. Hey, Eddie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. And I really look forward to seeing what 2016 brings for you, brother.
Absolutely. Me too. And you as well. Thank you so much. This is Change Your POV. This is Eddie Lazary. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, Your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.